Hello, and welcome to the Audrain Automobile Museum in Newport, Rhode Island. And I'm Donald Osborne. And today we're having the latest in our series of virtual seminars brought to you by the Audrain Newport Concours d'Elegance and Motor Week. Of course, this year in 2020, we are not holding our traditional Concours and Motor Week live here in Newport, but we are bringing one of the greatest parts of last year's celebration, our webinar, our seminar series, to you in this virtual format. And we, of course, started the series back in August with our first seminar, The Next Generation, in which we had a chat with three enthusiasts, two 13-year-olds and a 10-year-old, co-moderated by a 17-year-old, showing us that our love for collector cars is alive and well in the next generation and the generation after that. We followed that up with another seminar on our current exhibition, From the Racetrack to the Opera, with a great collector, Anne Brockington Lee, and a wonderful restorer, Steve Babinski, and a head of design for Touring Superleggera in Milan, Louis de Faberbeckers, to talk about what makes a great marque able to manufacture cars for the racetrack and to drive to the opera as well. Performance and luxury and style. And our last seminar was called Fake or Real, or Does It Matter? A discussion, a very interesting and wide-ranging discussion on whether it is possible, permissible, or desirable to build replicas of great race cars and why. And for that, we had the great collector and historian Miles Collier and the founder of the Amelia Island Concours d'Elegance, Bill Warner, a great racer and great historian himself, as our guests. Today's program is one that we're really excited about, and it's groundbreaking in a great way because this is an international webinar. We are joined today by Jay Ward of Disney Pixar and by Benjamin Martinek from the Porsche Museum in Stuttgart. And we're going to be discussing Disney Pixar's cars, characters as cars, and how that comes about. Because I know for me and for millions of other people who've seen the Cars movies, I know that I am completely captivated and taken in from the very moment that the lights go down and the film comes up, that I'm sharing an hour and a half with these great people who happen to be cars. And it's a fascinating thing to think about how that process starts and how it actually comes to life. And we're going to learn a little bit about that today. And the people that are going to bring that to us are, as I said, Ben Martinek, who is at the Porsche Museum in Stuttgart. Hello, Ben.
Hello there. Hi. Welcome in Stuttgart, or welcome from Stuttgart.
Thank you very much. Ben has a fascinating background. He literally grew up in the Porsche world, born in Stuttgart, a self-professed petrol head from a very young age, who first started as a tour guide at the Porsche Museum and later grew to many other responsibilities in Porsche, including club liaison and social media director, to become a part of the historic communication and marketing team and social media manager at the Porsche Museum in Stuttgart. And we'll talk about our third very special guest who's standing behind Ben, but not quite yet. We're joined from California by Jay Ward. Jay is a terrific guy, somebody who I consider a friend. He's not probably considers me a friend yet, but I'm sort of working on it. I've made my application. Jay has had an incredible career. After getting his Bachelor of Fine Arts in Illustration, he joined Pixar, and today with Pixar at Disney, he has celebrated 22 years of employment. Again, not only coming through the ranks, but really establishing himself in all parts of production, in the creative process, in the supervisory process, and today he is the creative director, and I love the creative director of franchise, but before that, I love your last title, which is creative director and legacy guardian. I just love that. I just see Jay in a suit of armor with a lance standing there and a flag saying, "Thou shalt not render this automobile in this manner in this franchise." I know that that's what Jay does. Also, he is a total and utter gearhead who lives for cars, both the movies and the real things. And he lends, I can tell by watching the Cars movies, you know that there is somebody who really knows and loves cars behind them. And I think that is through Jay's management of a great creative team and guidance of that great creative team that we get these incredibly compelling characters. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about the female lead in the Cars series, who is also joining us both on video, which you'll see in a second, and live in person. She's standing behind Benjamin in Stuttgart. So we'll greet both Sallys very shortly. So why don't we start by seeing Sally in video, Jay?
Yeah, I thought I would share with you guys some best of Sally clips from Cars, just so you remember her. Let's see if this works. Here we go.
The Radiator Springs traffic court will come to order.
Sorry, I'm late, Your Honor.
Holy Portia. You know, your job's pretty easy today. All you have to do now is stand there and let me look at you.
I'm gonna go talk to the judge.
Do what you gotta do, baby. Listen, I'm gonna cut to the chase. Me, you, dinner. You know, I don't get you. How does a Porsche wind up in a place like this?
Well, it's really pretty simple. I fell in love with this.
There you go.
Use myself. That is fantastic. That scene, when I saw it for the first time and seeing it again this time, you know, I think everybody could dream about a first date that is that beautiful, you know, with roads, views, the sheer joy that you feel emanating from these two characters, from Lightning and from Sally, is palpable. It's absolutely amazing. You know, you're smiling along. I'm smiling along as I watch it. And so right before we get into how Sally became Sally, let's take a look in Stuttgart at the real life Sally Carrera. Benjamin?
There you go. So Sally is right now, since a couple of months, within our exhibition. We love to have her here, especially because our younger visitors love her as well. And due to the fact that we are also affected by COVID-19, we are wearing usually masks. I am not wearing a mask right now because the museum is closed, but Sally as well, of course, wears a very special, one-of-a-kind mask here because she is also showing her responsibility by that way. But I would say I will put off the mask just to see her smiling, beautiful face. Give me a second and stay tuned.
There she is.
There's that Sally smile that we all love so much. We're going to come back to you, Benjamin, in a second to talk about the reaction that Sally gets from your visitors. We talked about this a little bit the other day. But, you know, again, going back to that wonderful sequence that we just saw in the clip, Jay, they are, I won't say they're people, they're larger than people. They're movie stars. And how do you go from a Porsche 911 to an actual feeling warm character?
Yeah, it's a great question. And to be honest, when we started on the movie, which will be 15 years old next summer, it's hard to believe. We started on the movie actually back in the year 2000. So we're 20 years since we started on Cars. And we knew we wanted these cars to come to life, but how to make them feel like living characters. Like you said, Donald, you forget that they're a car, you actually are watching two people talking. That is the magic, to have that connection with a character in that way. And I always tell people, they are characters first that happen to be cars. So you could say the character of Sally came first, and then we based a vehicle that fit that personality well.
And when you did the sort of traditional thing that screenwriters do, they create the characters, give them a backstory, and from that, you decided which cars would best express that backstory and that personality. So how did you come to express Sally as a Porsche? Why not some other brand?
It's a very good question, because Sally was not always a Porsche. early on in the movie, because obviously our movies develop over time as the story changes. Lightning McQueen was actually a NASCAR. He was a real like Monte Carlo style NASCAR. And we didn't know what we thought for Sally for a love interest. And McQueen was a much more square shape. And we had actually played with a Mustang because of the song Mustang Sally. That's kind of where the name came from. But what we realized, the problem with the 60s Mustang is they have a large horizontal grille, as you know, with the horse in it. And on a car, a large horizontal grille kind of looks a little bit like a mustache.
A mustache.
Yeah, and so she kind of had a Tom Selleck look, and we thought maybe this isn't the right love interest for Lightning. And so as we began to look at cars that were round, you know, as we've talked about before, male shapes are more square and angular, and female shapes are more round. That's just how they're represented in art. We realized a 911 has so many beautiful round shapes to them that it's a very feminine form in a good way. And so the other benefit of the Porsche was because Sally was a 911, there's no grille at all in the front. You know, Porsche did a very good job of, even though they had gone to water cooling with the 996, they did a great job of not sticking a big radiator grille there, but actually finding other ways to get the air to the engine. And so her face was nice and clean. And so we could do this round chin and keep the face clean, which read very feminine. So it worked very well for that.
Jay, let me ask you another question about that, because we've seen cartoon character cars before, but the way that the cars are rendered, the characters are rendered in the Disney Pixar series is rather different in terms of expression. How did that happen, and can you explain what that difference is?
Yeah, so the biggest principle that we had to stay true to was called truth in materials. And that means, yes, it's an automobile and a character that's alive, but if you begin to stretch or squash or move it around too much, your mind begins to go, that's not made out of metal, that's plastic or it's rubber. And you begin to lose the truth of it being a car. And so we know these things weigh, you know, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 pounds. They're heavy. And they're metal and they're glass, and they can't flip and fly up in the air too much because of their weight and size. So we started by going too far, making them loose and gestural and really come to life. And then we began to dial it back and find the points that we were okay with stretching and the points that had to remain rigid at all times. And once we got that formula down, you could see that the vehicles can talk and express themselves, but they don't break.
And one of the other things is, at what point do you also decide, in terms of, well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but we'll talk about the voice as well as the look, but let's stay with the look for the moment. One of the things that also is quite noticeable in the film are the very distinctive visual looks of all the characters. The fact that Lightning McQueen is bright red, and that's sort of, it says sports car, it says racing car. Vi is that wonderful soft green. And what is Sally's color, and why is Sally that wonderful metallic blue?
Well, we do lineups as we go, so we always have to keep the characters in a relationship with each other. So we are constantly doing a lineup, and you do that for two reasons. One is scale, is that if a vehicle begins to get too big, we cheat scales of the car. So none of them are 100%. The Volkswagen bus has been brought down a little bit, and the Jeep has been brought up a little bit, so they relate closer to each other. So there's a scale cheat going on. None of the cars are 100% accurate in scale. We're always cheating scales, and also we're cheating proportions. So some cars we're shrinking down in length, we're lowering roofs down, we're making them so that they are 100% appealing and yet remain realistic. And in terms of paint and color, we have a lineup of vehicles, and you want to have cools and warms always along the way. You'll notice none of our cars are solid black or solid white. They all have a tonality to them because that helps. But for Sally, we looked at the palette of the 2002 Porsche colors, which she's based on a 2002 996, and none of the colors really worked well for us for what we wanted. We wanted a lighter hue for her, and yet we definitely wanted a blue to contrast McQueen's red. And so we actually went to an older Porsche color, and John Lasseter, the director, we said, is it okay? This is not a real 2002 color. And he said, I think it's a beautiful color. Plus she could have been paint to sample. And so that's what we did.
And it's something that is also quite interesting that you just touched on, which is, for me, one of the most fascinating stories, is the fact that Sally, to me, looks like a Porsche 911. I would swear, if I didn't know any better, that, oh, it's exactly that Porsche they painted her a wonderful color. They did something with the front end to give her a smile and maybe a little tuck in the rear end, whatever it was. But in fact, the differences between a standard 911 and Sally are vast. And I think that you've got some photos to show us a part of that process.
Yeah, I will show you some images of what we started with when we built the life-size Sally. But the assumption you made is exactly when we went to the shop that built the life-size Sally, the gentleman thought the exact same thing. We just need to find a 996. We'll put some eyes on it and a mouth and go down the road. And we said, yeah, you have no idea that we actually manipulate every single line on these vehicles so that you get the flavor, the feeling, the sense that it's a 996. All the wheels are accurate and the lights are accurate. But as you look closer, no lines are exactly the same. So I normally don't show these kind of images, but I thought for today we would. This is the process of the making of the life-size Sally, just to show you some images of what she looked like while she was being built. Okay?
And just a reminder for our audience as well, I see we have a couple of questions in. If you use the chat feature of the Zoom app, you can send us questions. And if we have time on the program, we'll get Benjamin and Jay to answer your questions. So write in your questions on the chat feature, and we'll get to your questions as soon as we can.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, sure. So the life-size Sally we began on making, I would probably say in 2003. We were getting close to the movie was almost done in 2005. You know, the movie released in the summer of 06, but 03, 04, we started this proposal of life-size cars, and it was actually Porsche of North America that had the idea to build a life-size Sally. And so we agreed to help them make the car accurate. They had, the US office had found a shop in Los Angeles that could build a life-size Sally, and we began to work with that shop. And we started with a 996 that was donated by Porsche. That's me all in black in the background with my head turned away from the camera. And you can see straight away that the car has been shortened. We actually took, I didn't do this, I'm glad, I don't think I could have done this. They took a saw, cut the car in half and shortened it about 7 inches at the door. You'll also notice that the A-pillar, your first pillar next to the windshield is called your A-pillar, has been pushed upwards. So not at the normal rake, but actually pushed upwards and then extended as well. You can see the gentleman looking at the line where we brought the roof back together with the A-pillar again, and the difficulty of getting that nice flowing shape to Sally, because she was done out of metal. This couldn't be a fiberglass car because we started with a real car. And you can see now in this side shot what we did to manipulate the car into Sally. And when you look at the car in the bare metal, you actually see the shortening of the door, the raising of the A-pillar. There's actually the back of the roof line has been brought down so that it comes in cleanly at the engine compartment. Tons and tons of work to get to this point. And this is Bob Polly, the designer of Sally, holding up a clay maquette or a sculpt of Sally from the movie and saying, does this look proportionally like the character in the film? And finding out, can we push the pillars in on the sides? Can we round the front fenders? We had some limitations. You can't make it exactly like the character in the computer, but we got very close. That's me with my back to you again, and you can see we're kind of going over some proportional changes here. An interesting note about this Sally, she was actually a 1999 996, which has a different headlamp. It has the much maligned fried egg headlamp that they also used in the Boxster in that period that was not loved by all Porsche fans. But
I actually like them, but that's okay.
You are in that minority that loves those. But we wanted to have that, you know, Carrera 4S or Turbo or later 996 headlight that has a little bit more complex shape that we thought was just had a little bit more charm to it. And that's why those are in the pocket, but you can see the front bumper is still meant to accept the old 99 era headlamp. Here we are, and we're kind of getting on the final touches. This is Eddie Paul in the middle, the gentleman who built some of the cars for Fast and Furious and different TV shows, who has since passed away, but he ran the shop that built this life-size Sally. And you can see at this point, we've sprayed her in one color. We've still been working on the mouth. We actually hand sculpted the mouth. The eyes are in place. We're getting very close at that point. And this is Jerome and I. He's the sculptor at Pixar, who was my roommate in art school. So we've known each other for literally for decades. And he's drawing out some ideas on how to fix the cheek puff. Because as you smile, this material moves up in the corners of your mouth. And that's called a cheek puff.
And Jay, I have to say that looking at this photo, in process of the life-size Sally, I immediately look at it and I think of the Sally in the film, just sort of at a beauty appointment having a facial, you feel her character right there just looking at this car at this moment.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Donald. She's beginning to come to life. You'll notice she does not have her eyeliner on yet. Her gaskets around the edge aren't done yet, but we're getting very close. But as soon as you put the eyes in place, it truly is half the character coming to life. There's Bob Pauly and myself and Jerome again working on that mouth feature, going back to Eddie Paul and making sure that we're getting all those details right. And the reason I'm wearing this kind of grubby clothing, the shop was absolutely filled with body dust. So it was a dirty process. Yeah, it looks like that's February of 2006. I can see on the calendar. So we were very close to completing the car at that point. And then in May of 2006, Sally made it to the Lowe's Motor Speedway in Charlotte, North Carolina for the world premiere of Disney Pixar's Cars.
Astonishing. And Benjamin, let's take a look at Sally as she sits behind you.
There you go.
And one of the things that you mentioned when we chatted before is the fact that obviously the Porsche Museum is the repository of some of the most important and historic Porsche cars in the world. And people from all over the world come to see the Porsche Museum to worship the mark, which is so beloved by so many millions of people. And you wouldn't think that a character from an animated film would be a star in the Porsche Museum, but tell us about the reaction that Sally gets in the museum from visitors.
The reactions are similar to the reactions people have in front of real movie stars people. So you said it a couple of minutes ago, Donald. People from all over the world visit us, and they almost all recognize Sally as Sally Carrera. And they say hello like they say hello to anybody, to a real human. So Jay did a fantastic job with his team. And you really feel that the people, they have like a relationship with Sally. It's not a car they see here, it's a movie star, which became real somehow. It's an animated movie star, which became real thanks to the people who made her like this. So it is what you really feel and see. People recognize her as a movie star, as a character. And that is really, fantastic. We don't have anything like that within our Porsche Museum.
And how do people at Porsche, your colleagues and other Porsche employees, feel about Sally Carrera? Is this something that they say, well, this is sort of interesting, but they took a perfectly fine car and they've cut it and made it something else?
No. Everybody loves, everybody loves Sally. And as soon as we are working quite a lot with our cars. Donald, you know it, Jay, you as well. We are traveling with the cars worldwide, driving on historical races or displaying the cars in different museums or something like that. And we had Sally, for example, in Leipzig, which is a few hundred kilometers away from Stuttgart, our second production plant where we produce mostly the four-door cars. They also have something like a little museum within their buildings. And we had Sally there. And we were planning to bring Sally to Leipzig, everybody was like, no, you can't get Sally out of the museum. She's part of us. If you take any car, the most successful Porsche race car, go and bring it wherever you want, just take care.
Take the Le Mans winning 917, that's okay, but don't move Sally.
But Sally, she's our girl, and that's how we treat her, for sure.
That warms my heart. That makes me feel so good, because I'll just interject for a moment. Sally Carrera, when she was built back in 2005, 2006, she toured the world first for our movie, and then also Porsche actually had her on display at many dealerships around the world. At some point, Sally ended up back in Los Angeles and was in storage there for, I would say, 5-6 years. And we began to wonder what happened to Sally, because the movie wasn't out. There was no reason to display her. And I talked to the Porsche Museum and I said, would you guys like to have Sally Carrera? And thank goodness, and I want to give much credit to the Porsche Museum for saying, yes, please, we'll take Sally Carrera back, because otherwise she very well could have just fallen into disrepair and, gone away like so many other famous cars that just, disappear from the map. And Sally was lovingly restored at the Porsche Museum. and then introduced back into the museum on their 5th anniversary, where they let all the children in free that day. Very classy move. And also invited the German voice talent for the movie to come to the red carpet premiere of Sally at the museum.
And in honor of her status as a star, we've had a request from one of our viewers to have you, Benjamin, do a full walk around Sally so they can get all of her glory in full color there, live and in person.
I would say the camera guy, Ben, will walk without my face so you can see her better without me.
Excellent.
As Ben does that, I'll tell you a couple things about her. So we did mention she's got the later model turbo 2002 era headlamps, which we did apply. Yep. And the front fascia was all custom made, that entire front fascia. Yep. She also has turbo twist wheels, which a standard Carrera was an option, but we thought those wheels looked really good for her. So we put the turbo twist wheels. She has blacked out side windows because obviously those doors are not meant to open. Sally is a living character, so we don't open the doors on our characters. And as you go around to the back, you'll see she has her pinstripe tattoo, which was a moment in the movie when she's backing up and McQueen says, is that a pinstripe tattoo I spot back there? And she pops around very quickly. One interesting note is her license plate. You'll notice it's a California plate, and almost all the Cars characters have a license plate that means something. Sally's does not. And the reason why is, in California, when you make a movie, they assign you a DMV safe plate number for your California film. And that was the plate number they assigned to us for Sally, as she was a California license plate vehicle in a movie. So that was the plate they assigned. Little known fact.
It is, I'm always looking for, what do they call those? The little...
Easter eggs.
Yes.
We call them Easter eggs.
Exactly. And I wonder, are there any others that we can look for the next time we watch Cars in Sally or in any other characters?
Well, I'll tell you
a little hint.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing. All of Sally's sounds in the film are accurately recorded from a Porsche 996. So all the revving, the shifting, all of that, those are sound files that we got from Porsche for the movie for a 996. So they are the accurate sounds for her. You'll also notice when she's talking to McQueen in the cone, she backs up and her backup lights come on in the right place, in the right way, and the third brake light comes on, and then she moves forward and that all goes off. And we spent, I don't know how much time making sure that the lights worked exactly as they do on the real car. So it's the little geeky things like that that we really strive for authenticity.
Well, going back to sound, now let me ask the question too about the voice artists that are chosen for the roles. Do they get to see the car characters beforehand in terms of helping them with their voices and their characterizations, or how much of the characterizations that they bring can also be incorporated into the car character itself?
Yeah, it's a great question, and this really applies to all Pixar films. A lot of other animation studios will say, we're going to have this famous actor do this character because we want their name on the poster. And we tend to operate differently. We really think about our character and the story we're trying to tell first, and then we do an exhaustive search to find the best voice to fit our existing character who personifies the character best. And that's unusual in animation. Like I said, many people want to brag that they have this big star, they put it on the poster, and then they get them to voice a character, and they kind of model the character to look like that person a little bit, and we don't do that. So, what we really want to do is find that person that does fit the voice. And Owen Wilson for Lightning McQueen was perfect because he had that sort of, that sort of, I don't know how you'd say it, this sense of being, kind of laid back and at the same time kind of full of himself. He came across that way.
Yes,
he could really do
exactly.
that.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, and he can do that with his voice. He played that character so well. To answer your question, when Bonnie Hunt came in, who did the voice of Sally in the US, we had the maquette, that sculpt that you saw Bob holding, that gray sculpt for her to look at, and we had images. At the same time, because of the schedule, we were already animating sequences, and what we would do to do test animation is we'd find other movies she was in, like Jerry Maguire, and we would play clips from Jerry Maguire, and the animators would animate to that to make sure they got her brow movement or her mouth movement, or if she talks fast and then slow, we would try to mimic that to help the animators get up to speed before she did the actual lines for our film.
And since we have Benjamin and the Porsche Museum here, I know that when many movies are released in overseas markets and they are dubbed, that can be a great challenge for actors, for directors, for everyone. So how do you deal with the translations of the Pixar Cars movies into other languages? Because obviously English, for whatever the reason, and having done a number of translations, we say everything very, very succinctly. And in German, for instance, there might be 4 words for R1. So what do you do?
Yeah, it's true. Germans have a great way of taking 5 words and sticking it into 1 word. What we do is the film goes out to all of our offices, or the Disney offices around the world, where they actually pick the local voice talent. We don't do that. We let them do that because they know their stars better than us. And they watch the film with the sound off, so they're able to see the mouth movement. They have a script that they can translate, and they'll say, okay, she's saying, I'm excited that you're here, but we've only got this much movement. What do we say? And so sometimes they have to take an artistic license to get the point across with less words, and they do a fantastic, amazing job in over 50 languages around the world to do that.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary task indeed. Benjamin, when you've seen the Cars movies, have you seen them in both German and in English?
Yes, I've seen them. I've seen them first in German and then later in English. And when it comes to storytelling, they did really a great job. And also, when it comes to emotions, transporting the emotions, they also did a great job while translating it from English or American English to German. But as I've seen many people from all over the world recognizing Sally, whether it's an Italian, somebody from Italy or France, they all have that passion about Sally. They all have the same emotion, which means to me, they manage to transport the emotion, which is the toughest part of translating. So they manage to transport the emotions and the feelings, because all the people have the same sort of feeling when they see Sally here in the museum.
And that is definitely a tribute to the Disney Pixar team, Jay, in that the character Sally is so strong that she transcends language. You could probably actually, not that I'm suggesting this to anybody, because I think that as somebody who's a musician, I love sound. So you could probably watch the Cars movies with the sound completely turned off and still have a great deal of emotion just from watching the characters as if they were in a silent movie. That might be a great thing for a future episode in the franchise. A silent movie Cars with lots of wonderful brass era characters. That could be a hoot.
I have to say that the music is such a key part of the emotion. That sound is so incredibly important. A funny thing of considering what Ben is talking about, Ben, you can tell them, what is the name of Mater in German? In the German version of Cars, what is Mater called?
I have to be honest, I forgot it.
His name is Hook. Hook.
Hook.
Hook.
Yeah.
Hook. Yeah, he's Hook in Germany. Now,
Yeah.
if you watch Cars in France, it's not Lightning McQueen, it's Flash McQueen.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. We have a question from one of our viewers about the fabulous Hudson Hornet. And the question is it true that Paul Newman insisted that the car be a Hudson Hornet?
That is not completely true, but there is something interesting. First of all, Cars was the last film that Paul Newman did before he passed away, which is amazing to think that an iconic actor, his last film was an animated grumpy Hudson Hornet, which by the way, he brought that character to life. We had actually chosen the Hudson Hornet because of its dominance in NASCAR for this 3-year period, and then it just almost overnight was completely surpassed by the overhead valve V8 cars. And that was the story we wanted to tell. But when we brought that to Paul Newman, he also added things about Lightning McQueen can't drive around on slicks on the road. You've got to change him into treaded tires when he gets on the road. Turning left to go right in dirt, or, he said so many great lines that we just incorporated and let him do his thing. And those became the lines of Doc Hudson. So he owned that character. We chose the Hudson Hornet, but he actually brought it to life in every other way.
Yeah, it's amazing. Of course, it's one of my favorite characters, as it is for everyone. Of course, I also love Hudson Hornets, so that's the cool thing. And again, going back to me and old movies, it's also a wonderful sort of Sunset Boulevard moment where the great star who's been eclipsed, not because they're too old, simply time has passed, or so it's thought that time has passed, but in reality, they have a great deal to offer, which is, again, I think one of those things that we don't often look at the messages in movies, but clearly, when you do an animated movie, you as a creator think about messages because it's going to be something that's going to touch a wide audience, especially a lot of young people. And so messages are important. And I think that you also do a great job in this film in creating community. And to talk about that for a little bit, how did you come up with the ideas for the other characters in terms of their expressions as cars as related to the rest of the community of cars?
Yeah, I mean, part of it was as we did our research, we found automobiles that had amazing backstories. How the Jeep in World War II was literally the best friend of soldiers. The fact that the enemy would steal Jeeps because they were such a great vehicle. Or the fact that the Volkswagen bus was this, beloved part of the hippie movement. It was intrinsic with the hippie movement. You can't say Summer of Love without drawing a Volkswagen bus. All these characters, Luigi, the little Fiat 500 is this lovable, bouncy, great car. They have so much life and personality to them that really, in those cases, for those, what I call secondary characters of Radiator Springs, just bringing that car's personality to life and then voiced, it's enough of a character in itself that it works.
And Ben, is it something that Porsche finds in terms of a conversation I know that I had with Jay earlier, and I've spoken with a number of other people about this. The market for sports cars is generally overwhelmingly a male market. And was there any question about Sally being a female character, or was that looked at as a way to broaden the appeal of the 911 to a larger market, do you think?
Was that a question for Ben? Yeah.
I think, Jay, you've had an explanation or an answer for that when we were talking about a similar thing yesterday. Am I right?
Yes, it was when we first approached Porsche about the movie. We basically showed them the film and said, hey, we want to make Sally as this a 911. And Porsche North America at the time said, well, you're making our car into a female character instead of a male character. Why can't we be the lead? Why can't we be the Lightning McQueen, right?
The race car.
And what we explained to them was how important Sally was as a character, and that she had to be a fast sports car who could stand on her own, that was an independent character, not just a love interest, but really a primary character that balances McQueen, how important her character was. And this is a very important fact to remember. If you look at cars, Lightning McQueen, Mater, those are in-house designs. We created those characters from scratch. They're not based on any automobile. But Sally is truly a Porsche. Doc Hudson, those are based on real cars. And so that balance of in-house design and real cars was very important to us. And for Sally as a primary character to be a Porsche was quite an honor, considering Hudson Hornet's not around anymore as the other primary character. This was a current brand being represented in an animated feature. And they quickly came to understand that, especially because I think it gave them an opportunity for more female buyers to be interested perhaps in Porsche.
It is an interesting thing, and also leads directly to the next viewer question, which is, how did you choose to make Sally in real life and not any of the other characters? And obviously part of this is the fact that Sally is a Porsche, but can you speak to that, Jay?
It's interesting because I have to give credit to Porsche. Porsche North America had the idea of building a life-size Sally first. That didn't come from our marketing team. So at the time, Disney, who is our parent company, we're Pixar Animation Studios, but Disney does the marketing for our films. They do the marketing and the distribution for Pixar films. And they had not made plans to make a life-size version of the cars. That just was not in their scope, in their budget, in their radar. And Porsche said, we want to build a life-size Sally. And so Disney said, okay, that's fine. You can make a life-size Sally. And as they started doing it, they saw how special this car was coming out. And the gentleman from Porsche said, if there was a life-size McQueen to go with her, imagine what that would do. And so all of a sudden Disney got on board and said, we will make a life-size McQueen. and a life-size Mater, and we'll tour all 3 cars together for the Cars tour. And then contractually afterwards, Sally can go to Porsche for a while. And so that's how she came in. We really, if it was just Disney, they probably only would have built a Mater and a McQueen, but it wasn't even originally their idea. I have to give credit to Porsche for that idea first.
And people, go ahead, Ben.
Sorry, I'm for interrupting, but I think that Porsche had that idea to build Sally Carrera by themselves is, yeah, just to honor and to cherish her as a Porsche. I think they really loved the idea. And I'm not sure what happened back in the days and what they were thinking about Sally and the movie, because it all happened before I even started to work for Porsche.
It was definitely Porsche North America. There was a gentleman who used to do the Porsche vehicle placements in the movies named Howard Buck. And Howard Buck was the guy who would, if you were making a film with Tom Cruise and they wanted him to drive a 911 Turbo across the bridge, you would borrow that vehicle from Porsche via Howard Buck. And so I think Howard, I have to give credit to him for saying, you know, it'd be really great. What if we built a life-size Sally? And somehow he got Porsche on board, and somehow he got Disney to say okay, and then the rest was history.
And speaking of a different character in the movie, and this is a question that actually came up during a seminar on design that we had at the 2019 Audrain Newport Concours and Motor Week. Someone in the audience asked if you were going to come up with a car for me as a character, what would it be? And our good friend Jay Leno volunteered that I would be a Borg Ward Isabella.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I think he thought he was being funny, but actually I happen to like Borg Isabellas. But one of our viewers has asked Jay if Mater was based in some way off of a 1959 International.
No, it's funny. When you look at Mater, there's every single panel is kind of like something you've seen before, but not quite. And that's really a testament again to when you get that in-house design right, it feels like it could have been a factory design. But if you put him next to a Chevrolet truck, a Ford truck, an International truck, there's just no 2 or 3 elements that all lock into one vehicle. And I think that's, again, a testament to Bob Pauly and the design team on cars that did those designs for the characters.
Well, and it's also the fact that, again, getting to know these characters, getting to care about these characters, it's like someone whose face you think, I know this guy. He looks so much like a friend of mine.
Yes.
You know, because you know this person, or people have seen you in interviews, and they'll walk and say, Jay, so good to see you. It's like, well, when have we met? Well, we haven't, but I've seen you on television, and you know, I've read everything you've written, and so I know you.
One more point about Mater, and I actually just got back from a Route 66 road trip with my family where I stopped at all the places that inspired cars. And in Galena, Kansas, is a tow truck that is an International tow truck that was the story inspiration for Mater. I'm not sure if you can see that or not. But that's
yes.
Next to the truck. And the idea was the story team back in 2001 took a Route 66 road trip for inspiration for the movie. And the late Joe Ranft, the great Joe Ranft story artist, saw that lonely, rusty tow truck, and it was an International, sitting at a gas station in Galena, Kansas, and said, it's got the spirit of this trusty town character that just, his whole life is to help others. His whole life is to help you out of trouble, to tow you when you're having a hard time. He has no assumptions about himself. He's the opposite of a race car. And that was the story kernel of Mater as a character.
Well, that's probably where that question originates. I would imagine that someone who has either heard that story or seen that truck, which makes sense. And speaking of this wonderful adventure that you recently took with your family, which I would love to do, because first of all, since seeing the first Cars movie, I've always wanted to visit Radiator Springs, and I can never quite find that exit on the interstate. It's so well hidden. But what do you think that what would that trip? You took it as a family trip with a trailer and all this, but what about sort of taking Sally Carrera on that trip? Would that be a wonderful thing?
I already talked to Porsche and said, I think if we did a series of 911s all in blue and did a 911 road trip where we started maybe in Missouri and ended up in Los Angeles, Sally's hometown, with 911s and documented along the way, I think that'd be a really cool trip that people would appreciate. So It's there if we want to do it.
Then you can do the
Let's talk
international
about-
version. Exactly, I was going to say, yes, Benjamin can do the international version as well, with Sally and her friends crossing the Alps from Monte Carlo. No, Cars 2 was it?
I mean,
was that in Monte Carlo? Cars 2,
No,
Monte Carlo,
Cars,
exactly. Crossing.
Cars 2, we did a road trip where we went through 6 countries in 11 days. That was breakneck. And we actually went, you know, there was going to be a moment in Cars 2 that happened in parts of Germany in the Black Forest. There are these huge fire roads, and we were going to have a rally race through the fire roads down in the Wolfach, Dreifach, this sort of area down there, Triberg, this area down there. We thought about this area to do a German rally race through the trees. It didn't happen in the movie, but we did research it.
Oh, okay.
Well,
But
perhaps we can get
it's-
together with Benjamin. We can make it happen in real life.
And we can bring Sally to the United States and to the Route 66 back. No problem. That's easy for us.
It's all coming together, Donald. It's all coming together.
That is absolutely fantastic. I want to ask you, Benjamin, one more question as we tie this up. For the Porsche factory, and this obviously is going to be a vehicle which is going to be on display permanently in the museum. Is there any desire to perhaps build a second one so we can have one here in America all the time?
I mean, we would have perhaps a 996 for that. But honestly, it's really a tough job to build another Sally. And perhaps if there would be some more interested people and companies like Disney Pixar, perhaps we could talk about that as well.
I'm trying to tie all the links together because, of course, we'd love to have Sally here in Newport next year for the 2021 Audrain Newport Concours and Motor Week. I think Sally would be a wonderful addition to our lineup.
If you do want to see Sally in the United States, there's a few places that you can see Sally. One is at the Art of Animation Resort at Walt Disney World. You can walk up and touch a Sally there. And then there's also a Sally at Radiator Springs in Cars Land that is there as well, that lives with McQueen on the Radiator Springs Racers Ride. So Sally is, you can see her in the US in a few places, but nothing is quite like the car behind Benjamin.
Exactly.
But Donald,
well, yes.
as Sally understands you, of course she does.
Yes.
She feels like invited now for your next year's concours. So we will have to stay in touch regarding.
I'll send Sally a ticket, and we'll give her first class accommodations here in Newport. Jay knows how well we treat our visitors, and we certainly treat Sally very, very well here. And we love Porsche as a brand here at the Audrain, and we're big Porsche files. So Sally would be in great company here. That's for sure. And Jay, I want to thank you very much for your time and for giving us this very brief glimpse. I have to say to everyone that Jay has only basically brushed the surface of what the incredible creative process is. He's shared with us some of the early sketches, and this is really something that a lot of people don't understand the movie making business, how long things take to make, and then add on that the animation movie business, which is even more labor intensive and time intensive. It's really quite something that these spectacular works have been brought to us and exist now for millions and millions of people to share for generations to come. So we are incredibly grateful to you and to the Disney Pixar crew. Oh, hold on, we have one more. Oh, we just had another request for, as we leave, one more walk around Sally, please, so that we can get another look at our great movie star. And you know, it is so funny again, seeing Sally, the live Sally is so amazing, because knowing what the alterations are from Sally to the production car, this is sort of what I expect the production car to look like now, because it's almost sort of a full circle. It's not that Sally has become this 911, but the 911 is actually Sally.
Yeah, she is has so much charm to her, so much personality, and it's not an easy thing, as Benjamin said, to take a physical car and make it look like an animated character. Even if they seem similar, there's so much massaging that goes on to get it to look this charming, and really, I'm so proud of the way she turned out, and we're so happy. She couldn't be in a better home than back in Germany where she was built in Stuttgart. So,
Indeed.
yeah.
Indeed. And so once again, thank you very much, Benjamin. Thank you so much, Jay, for your time and your inspiration and your look inside this process. And I'd also like to invite both of you and our audience watching today to join us for our next seminar in this series, which will be based around our next exhibition, Small Wonders, Mini, Micro, Pedal, and Toy Cars. So that's something that I know will interest both Jay and Benjamin quite a bit. And also, of course, this video will also be posted on our Audrain Museum YouTube channel. And if you've not seen our Audrain YouTube channel, we invite you to come and watch it. We post 2 new videos a week on the channel. And if you like it, please subscribe, tell your friends about it, comment, and share. Thank you very much. I'm Donald Osborne from the Audrain Automobile Museum in Newport, Rhode Island. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.